and I loved it. Crime scenes, it was very busy. Once you become a CSI, you never stop working. One of my other fears was how once you go to a crime scene, once you start your workday, you never know when you're going to finish.
Really? Why? Because other cases could come in, or it's just everyone's overloaded? Like, what's the reason?
Yes, there's a lot of work. Unfortunately, these fields, we never going to go unemployed. There's a lot of work. And in this case, you have very long days. You may work 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 20 hours straight. You may not have time to eat. You may have barely time to have a drink. So it can be very intense. Not always, but often it can be very intense. I had cases, days that I had to go to 3 or 4 different crime scenes on the same day. And it can get very, very intense and stressful as well. But if you learn how to time manage, if you take good notes, if you go take good pictures and everything, then, it's supposed to be a pleasant experience overall. And the satisfaction that you feel that you're helping people while you're working, that's huge. And to me, this is something that I really appreciate from being a crime scene investigator.
Well, I guess, the first time you saw a dead body, it was weird. But the 100th time you saw one, you could probably be eating a turkey sandwich and just keep eating and not even worry about it, right?
Yes and no. I mean, every case is different. So every time you go to a crime scene, we always tell, and I was told when I was being trained, that every crime scene is going to be different. And don't assume anything. Don't assume that, okay, you see this body and yeah, you've seen once, you've seen them all. Well, yes and no. The yes is that yes, it's a dead body, but the no is the circumstances surrounding the body. So a dead body, at the end of the day, if you look at it from the biological perspective, it's just like a whole bunch of bones, skin, cells, and that's it, right? But behind it, there's a person, there's a life, there's family members, there's circumstances. So as I said, yes and no. The yes is just, yeah, it's just a body. And the no is just because you're interacting with the family members, you're interacting with witnesses, you're interacting with anyone who's been involved in that crime. And obviously that is actually very different. And the age of the individuals also matter. So it's not that you see like an 80-year-old or a 70-year-old or a 50-year-old or a 6-month-old. It's very, very different. And it has a huge impact. And especially if you see gruesome crime scenes that you would never imagine that you would see that in your life.
Oh, no.
This is, some circumstances are tough, are very difficult to explain. And these you don't see on television, of course, because they go beyond, imagination sometimes.
Are you able to describe one of them and maybe using soft words like what happened? Or, if it's too much to discuss, it's okay.
Yeah, well, I don't know exactly what the audience is of the podcast, but there's a lot of cases that, the mildest cases that I can describe is when someone has just recently died of an overdose or someone who has committed suicide, for example, taking an overdose of pills or poisoned. Those are cases that the body is very fresh and you go to the scene. Those are, big deal crime scenes. The ones that can become a little more, I would say, not very pleasant, okay, are the ones, especially in my case, because we all have our weaknesses. My case is seeing cases that involve many times young kids or teenagers. Those are the ones that can affect anyone, whether you're a professional or not. And those, for me, are especially sensitive.
Do you get any, I'm not saying anything's wrong with you, but do you get therapy sessions to help you? Is there a program when you were doing CSI work to prevent, moral injury or you becoming really messed up in the head from seeing all this stuff so often? I'm not saying you're weak or there's anything wrong with you, but anyone that sees that over time, I guess, would be affected. And if you don't watch out and, maybe get therapy and stuff like that, it might affect you in a negative way.
Well, that's a very good question, because before you actually get in the discipline of crime scene or, forensic science in general, you don't think about this thing. And I think my head is very well in place and I don't think I have any psychological issues beforehand, but we do actually. The police agencies, they provide psychological services and psychological support, especially for cases where crime scene investigators or even forensic scientists or even crime lab technicians, they have gone through a very, very tough situation. And yes, we do have those. I've never used them, but I'm aware that several colleagues may have used those services. And those are very typical. Again, that depends a lot on the agency and how the agency supports their employees. But in my case, it was very supportive. But I never had to use them. Yes, they actively provide those services for sure, yes.